In the day and age of compensated red dot handguns, there is a particular kind of gun that's kind of missing the whole point. Usually they're relegated to competition setups with optics that couldn't even fit in a full wrap holster, doing all the way with lights and a lot of the cool stuff, very light triggers and stuff. But today, from that genre, we have a very special pistol that ticks every single box for a combat handgun. This is the Rmr R604. The Rmr R604 is an airsoft reproduction of the STI DVCP. So let's go tip to butt and go through this thing. First of all, it has a integrated compensator up top with a very interesting internal threading. You could probably put tracers on there, lock suppressors if you have a longer barrel, or another compensator, God forbid. But it's one of the more aesthetic points on this pistol, as it really doesn't serve a purpose other than to weigh the barrel down and to stabilize it. Coming back, we have the tactical rail for lights, lasers, and God forbid if you're Cummy Bear Airsoft. Please don't put a grip on your Hicapa. However, there is some problems with the rail, particularly the spacing of the rail. You see, because of it being a Picatinny rail and being slightly off spec compared to a Glock, a normal X300 UA style light with their springboards may require a special adapter for it to fit properly. Now what I did is I just cut a piece of foam, stick it behind the light, slide it on, give it a good press, and it's working. Coming back up top, we have some porting in true DVC fashion, holes, and pretty good for power stroking, surprisingly. Coming back, we have the normal slide lock, had a little bit of issues, talk about that later. But then, here comes the crown jewel of the system, the Rmr Plate. Currently it's running with a HWR polymer armor, which we'll probably do a review later. It's for another day, it's had some weird quirks to work out. But because it is directly mounted to the BBU, much like the AW, you have to use their BBU, or with a little bit of ingenuity, you can probably thread and tap a aftermarket BBU to work with it. Front sight and rear sight is, well, the front sight is a standard Hicapa, but the rear one is their own proprietary stuff, and it's very hard to find replacements for. But it does come with fiber optic front and a blackout rear, so if you don't want to run optics, you can keep on using their just bare plate and not even use it. Do note that The Rmr Plate is a friction fit on the slide, and it requires a bloody hammer. If you're unlucky and you strip the thread on the BBU, then you're out of luck. So beware, you have to install that yourself. It does come with it though, so good stuff. Coming back, we have the Ambidextrous Safety, standard Hicapa stuff. Sometimes easily fall off. I haven't had it fall off on mine yet, but we'll see. And then comes to the Stippled Grip. Unlike most stippling jobs, it doesn't use the actual dimples on the gun to provide friction. Instead, it uses the cooked ridges to provide, traction for your grip, which means that it isn't as painful and it's a bigger texture, but still retains grip under moist, bloody conditions very well. So I kind of like it. It's a bit too long for me. And then back to here, we have the Magwell. The Magwell, pretty standard DVC stuff. A lot of STI Magwells. It's black. It works pretty well. This isn't particularly something right at home at. However, it does have the little openings so that when paired with their own mag base, which also has these little divots, you can easily strip the mag with it. How useful is that? Not exactly, but it's nice to have. So now let's get on to, my personal experience. It's a, it's a Hicapa, that's for sure. It's mostly TM compatible, which is fine. The Rmr Plate so far hasn't failed, which is good. However, it is kind of sloppy. You come to expect with a gun of this price range, it is very easy to strip threads. For example, the rear firing pin plate, which holds the BBU into the slide, has stripped on me already on the first couple hundred rounds in a training session. That you'll have to be aware of because I haven't touched that at all and it just flew straight out. Thankfully, because the plate screws onto the BBU, I can probably do without it, but having something strip out like that isn't exactly very confidence-inspiring. On top of that, it does have some efficiency issues due to the router height and nozzle placement. It just isn't exactly efficient with unmodified Marine mags and sometimes even with their own mags. Unmodified with their own mags, I can probably get 35 shots out in the winter, and then it just runs out of gas. With these, even less, about 30 shots. However, once you install some aftermarket gas kits and a PTS MEC piston, it's very, very bloody efficient. So, just like people say, it's only cheap if you don't value your time. So, if you have the time and you're willing to put a little bit of money into upgrading it, it is a very potent platform. Small things to note. On top of that, the slide finishing is, you come to expect this level of finishing on a Chinese product. It's a very thick black paint on most metal parts, but it doesn't seem to scratch very easily, which is a godsend. On top of that, it has some very Hicapa-esque issues. For example, there is no realistic way you could grip the frame with your thumb, like what you could do with a Glock. It's just a slick surface without a bridge or anything. What I did is I put a piece of grip tape or whatever sandpaper tape you can find to rip your fingers out on the frame and just put my thumbs on it like how I shoot a Glock, which, if you don't know, I used to be a big Glock fan and I still is. Just like that, we also have the magazine release. Because of how big the Hicapa grips are, most people had to rotate their grip a little bit to strike the mag release. On 1911s, if your hands are big enough, you could probably do it, but there's a little bit issues. I You could probably do a Glock little groove here so that you can more easily reach the button, but we'll see what we can do. And lastly, the elephant in the room, the bloody slide lock. It's too short. You'll have to use your offhand to pull it. Let me show you. After you insert the mag, you use your support hand to hit it. Which, admittedly, sometimes it's not very, well, it's not the best thing in the world in terms of weapons manipulation, speed, and such. However, it is a Hicapa. Using this system, you kind of expect these things. And as a Hicapa, I'm pretty satisfied at its price point. So, what is the final verdict? Coming around at $120, it's a pretty good pistol for its price. Of course, there are some little issues you have to work it out on your own, but for that price, and you really want to go for a Hicapa, this pistol you can't lose. However, if you just want a reliable combat pistol that just works out of the box, you could always go for the Rmr Works Glocks. They're Hicapas, and they work fine. So, this concludes this episode of Airsoft Reviews, and yeah, leave a comment down below what you think I should review next, and see you next time.